There were many cruise ships scrapped during 2020, victims of the lengthy and unprecedented cruise pause which continues until this day. The scrapping domino started to fall in April of 2020 when Marella Cruises announcing they will withdraw their aging cruise ship Marella Celebration. Entering service in 1984 as the Noordam for Holland America Line, the ship had been sailing for Marella Cruises as well as its predecessor Thomson since 2005. While rumours persisted that the ship would be scrapped, she sailed for Piraeus in Greece and has remained there laid up, although it does seem unlikely that she will ever return to service. In June of 2020, Costa Cruise Line withdrew the Costa Victoria from service. When she first entered service in 1996, she was a significant new build for Costa at over 75,000 tonnes and ushering in a suite of new amenities. With the ship just 24 years old, it came as a bit of a surprise when Costa announced her withdrawal from service. Initially, the ship was sent to a shipyard in Piombino, and there were mixed messages as to whether the ship would be scrapped or used as an accommodation vessel for dry dock workers. Costa Victoria remained laid up until January of 2021, at which time multiple news sources announced that the ship would be taken under tow to the scrapyards of Turkey. I've linked to some of those articles in the description below. When Royal Caribbean introduced the Sovereign of the Seas in 1988, it took the cruising world by storm. The first in a new breed of giant cruise ships, the ship's 73,500 gross tons eclipsed that of the SS Norway, which was at the time the largest cruise ship in service and had operated as the former ocean liner SS France. In 2008, the Sovereign of the Seas was transferred to Pullmantur Cruises, although she remained owned by Royal Caribbean. The ship was renamed Sovereign and continued cruising with Pullmantur until its collapse in 2020. Sadly, the collapse of Pullmantur also saw the end of the career of Sovereign. She was sold in July 2020 to the scrapyards in Turkey. Sovereign is now largely broken up. The Monarch started her cruising career in 1991 as a cruise ship for Royal Caribbean. She was at the time named the Monarch of the Seas. Sister ship to Sovereign, she was built at the Chantier de l'Atlantique shipyard and shared the same general dimensions and design. This included the distinctive raised 360-degree observation bar in the ship's funnel. Transferred to Pullmantur in 2013, Monarch also fell victim to Pullmantur's collapse. She was beached in July of 2020, and while she's looking a bit worse for wear, she does remain, exterior-wise, largely intact at the beginning of 2021. When Carnival Fantasy entered service in 1990, she ushered in a new class of ship for the Carnival Cruise Line. Known as the Fantasy class and at over 70,000 tonnes each, these ships were significantly larger than anything that Carnival had built before and brought in a suite of new amenities on board the ships. This included a multi-story atrium, multiple dining venues, and a top deck full of entertainment, sports activities and swimming pools. As the oldest member of the fleet, Carnival Fantasy was the first to go, beaching in Turkey for scrap in July 2020. She was joined by Carnival Inspiration in July of 2020, while Imagination was also beached in September of 2020, with all three ships alongside one another at the Turkish scrapyard. A fourth Fantasy-class ship was also withdrawn, and this was Carnival Fascination. After a period of lengthy layup where rumours persisted that she too would be scrapped, she has been renamed Century Harmony and is expected to operate as a hotel ship in Asia. In August, many fans of Fred Olsen Cruises were saddened to hear of the retirement of both Blackwatch and Boudica. Both of these cruise ships date back to the 1970s, having been built for the now defunct Royal Viking Line. Both ships operated for a variety of brands prior to joining Fred Olsen, with both sailing for Norwegian Cruise Line, while Boudica also sailed for Princess Cruises, operating under the name of Golden Princess. They were replaced by the larger, newer Bolette and Borealis, formerly Amsterdam and Rotterdam from Holland America Line. Though it is widely believed that both Boudica and Blackwatch will never sail again, both ships appear to have been saved, so far at least, with both of them flagged for use as accommodation vessels in Turkey. CMV's collapse in July of 2020 led to two of its popular cruise ships making their way to the scrapyard in recent months. The 1987-built Asta had been a popular cruise ship for CMV since 2013 and had numerous operators prior to her joining the CMV fleet. Having established CMV's brand in Australia, the ship spent much of her latter career offering cruises in either Australian or European waters. With CMV's collapse, sadly Asta was auctioned off and sent to scrap. She arrived at the Turkish scrapyard in October 2020, where she was beached. Scrappers have wasted little time on breaking up Asta, with much of her bow and forward superstructure now dismantled. Another CMV ship that fell victim to its collapse is the Marco Polo, beached for scrap in early 2021. Originally built as a Soviet ocean liner, the Marco Polo has been in service since 1965, making her one of the oldest passenger ships to offer regular cruises until 2020. She was officially withdrawn from service when CMV ceased operations, but she was sold in October 2020 with the hope that the ship would be utilised as a floating hotel. However, this was not to be, and after a short layup off the coast of Dubai, she sailed the short journey to Alang, where she beached in January of 2021 to commence the scrapping process. Like Marella Celebration, Marella Dream was an older cruise ship being operated by Marella Cruises. Originally built as Homeric for the home lines, the ship was probably best known for her time at Holland America, where she sailed as Westerdam. She also cruised for Costa and Thomson Cruises before becoming a member of the rebranded Marella fleet. Although it is reported that she has been sold for scrap, like Marella Celebration, she remains laid up in Piraeus, Greece. 2020 also led to the collapse of India's only locally based cruise line, Jilesh Cruises, and with it, the withdrawal of their cruise ship, Karnika. This one hurt personally for me because I was very fond of this ship, having sailed on her when she operated as Pacific Jewel for P&O Australia. Built for Princess Cruises, the ship was designed by Italian architect Renzo Piano and featured a unique dolphin-inspired design on her forward superstructure. She had a varied career, cruising as Crown Princess, Arosa Blue, Aida Blue, Ocean Village 2 and Pacific Jewel before joining Jilesh Cruises in 2019. Sadly, she was beached at Alang in India in November 2020. Her near-identical sister ship, the former Pacific Dawn, is expected to join her at Alang in the coming weeks. She was sold during 2020 with the intention for her to become a floating hub for the cryptocurrency community. However, she has since been sold to the breakers. Grand Celebration is a former Carnival Cruise Line ship that entered service in 1987 as Celebration and ended her days in 2020. She sailed with both Carnival and Iberia Cruises before joining the Bahamas Paradise Cruise Line fleet in 2014. With the cruise pause dragging on, she was sold for scrap and beached at Alang in India on the 14th of January. Another Carnival Cruise Line ship that's also met her fate at Alang is the former Tropicale, notable for being Carnival's first ever new build. Recently cruising as Ocean Dream for Peaceboat, the ship also sailed for Pullmantur under the same name. At Peaceboat, the ship was replaced by the former Pullmantur cruise ship Zenith, which actually started her career as a Celebrity Cruise Line ship. The Ocean Dream was no longer required, and she was sold for scrap and beached at Alang in early January. So that was depressing. I'm sorry that it wasn't a more upbeat video, but let's try and end on a more positive note, and that's in relation to the retirement of the Majesty of the Seas and the Empress of the Seas. These two ships are of a similar vintage to the Sovereign and the Monarch, and whilst it was of great concern that they may well end up in scrap, they have been sold to an undisclosed buyer where it is expected that they will return to service after the cruise pause ends. I'll keep you updated if anything changes in relation to these two ships. Hopefully you found it interesting to get a bit of a handle on which ships have been lost forever during 2020. There are of course other ships that have been sold, transferred and moved around during the cruise pause. If you want to keep track of all of the things that have been happening during 2020, check out my Cruising and COVID playlist. If you enjoyed the video, please don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss future videos. Thanks so much for watching, and when it is safe for us to travel again, I hope to see you on board.